Hello, I'm Richard from English Whiskies. Thank you so much for joining me for the first proper video of this channel. Tonight I'm going to be talking to Richard Foster of the English Whisky Society. He's going to be talking back over the events of last weekend's first ever All English Whisky Festival, talking about the future of English whisky and perhaps picking out one of his current favourite English whiskies. So I hope you enjoy the video and please like and subscribe, and there'll be more content to follow soon. So I'm joined now by Richard Foster of the English Whisky Society. Hi Richard, thanks very much for joining me.
Hi Richard, it's good to be here.
Well, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And we were just talking a moment ago, you must be so on a bit of a come down now after the English Whisky Festival last weekend.
Yeah, it was really good fun, and it was a lot of effort, but it was all very much worth it. It was sort of 2 days of sitting down and clicking buttons and talking to people, but it felt like I'd run a marathon afterwards. So not that was anything to do with drinking all the whiskey as well. No, it was a great event. We're really, really proud. And, obviously I was the main protagonist, but there were a lot of other people involved behind the scenes. My wife did quite a lot of the admin to help keep me on track. But also, we had like a committee, which obviously yourself was part of, helping promote and just get the word out, advising me along the way, keeping me on the straight and narrow. So it's really a collective effort, and all of that support and belief that we could do it, because it really was an unknown entity when we set out, and I'm just absolutely chuffed that we made it happen, and it came to fruition.
Well, no, congratulations on it. It was an excellent event, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm sure it opened people's eyes to English whiskey that have never tried it before, or perhaps a few people have tried some here or there at whiskey shows, but not really gone any deeper than that. So it really opened a lot of people's eyes, certainly from comments that I got. Maybe picking up on that, let's go back a little bit. So how did your journey into English whiskey start, and then how did that then progress on to becoming the English Whisky Society?
So I'm actually quite a late convert to whiskey in general. So I was working for a photographic and video content company about 4 or 5 years ago, and my main client was one of the big drinks companies, and I was exposed to whiskey in a way that allowed me to try more things than the average consumer would unless they were searching it out. So I kind of got the whiskey bug doing that. And then a few years later, I moved down to South London, and a local not-for-profit brewery called Ignition opened up, and they wanted events run to bring people through the door, raise awareness. Someone had nabbed the quiz, and I thought, well, I like this whiskey stuff, let's start running tastings. So 2 years of tastings and enjoying a wide variety of whiskey. I came across English whiskey. I was doing like a Six Nation themed whiskey night. Came across some English whiskey. I think it was Cotswolds sort of standard release. And I thought, I've got to find out more about English whiskey. This stuff's actually really good. Never heard of it before. And there was no kind of central hub. There was no point of information other than Cooper King's fantastic map, which is helping us all out.
Yeah, I pitched that one as well myself. So thanks, Cooper.
But yeah, it was essentially that vacuum of information that made me think, well, actually, again, just throwing myself into it, there's nothing here. Let's fill the void. So that's where it all came about from, really.
Okay, and then how did that then? How long ago was it that you set up the English Whisky Society, and how did that come about? And how did you kind of get people on board to sort of draw them into it? And that, of course, resulting in the English Whisky Festival that happened just last weekend.
Yeah, of course. Well, we did a tasting on St. George's Day back in April. Obviously, lockdown had happened then, so it was done online. We had 50 people and sent out packs of, I think, 8 samples that we all hand bottle. I say we, me and my wife. Even tried to get the kids involved, but they're a bit young for production line yet. So we did that tasting. It went really well, had a great response. And everyone was saying, well, when are you gonna, when's the festival? When are you gonna, there's all these distilleries that you're talking about. When can we bring more of them together and do a bigger event? So instead of focusing on setting up the society as a membership organization and sort of working out all the benefits that would bring people for joining the membership society, we put all of our energy into running the festival and getting that off the ground. So it was a labor of love, and obviously I've got a full-time job and young children, and it was at times something that we didn't think we'd be able to make happen. But working with people like the Dram team who made these beautiful packs,
Really nice.
Which, you know, I think was a really nice touch. It's a shame we didn't have them sooner to show people what they were actually buying, but once they landed in people's post boxes, it was definitely worth all the effort. So yeah, it was a strange journey, but that's kind of how we ended up at the festival.
And you didn't even mention the fact that there was COVID this year as well. So that's another big hurdle that didn't phase you at all.
If anything, it helped, because I think doing the first tasting in lockdown, we probably did a bigger event than had we tried to do it physically for that inaugural tasting, and then that kind of gave us a false sense of how easy it would be to run something on a bigger scale in lockdown. It's easy, you just post stuff to people, you know, build it and they will come. It wasn't that simple, and you know, we didn't quite sell all the packs, but look, you know, you sometimes just have to roll the dice and take a chance, and we took a chance, and I hope it paid off.
Oh, I think it did. It was a great event. So with obviously some more people now have got involved in English whiskey and they've sampled it for the first time. Have you had much feedback since the festival from people that maybe that you knew, or people that you got involved that weren't exposed to too much English whiskey, and now they've tried a few? Have you got much feedback from the kind of the quality of the spirit that's out there and some of the distilleries? What's the sort of feedback that you've had?
Yeah, definitely. You know, the interesting thing, I guess, is people who are big whiskey drinkers but haven't necessarily really explored English whiskey yet. I think there were quite a few people that through the festival were surprised, I guess, at the breadth and depth of quality. Everyone's tried one good English whiskey. If you're into whiskey, you might have come across Bimber or Cotswolds or Lakes, you know, but to have had such a variety of spirits and whiskies, and for them to all hold up as well as they did, I think that really surprised people. And yeah, there were some people, you know, friends and family, for instance, who we encouraged to join in, who I think were also really surprised that English whiskey wasn't just this kind of joke of I think 15 years ago when the English Whisky Company started out, I think they struggled against a tide of the English don't do whiskey, you know, and it's Scotch or nothing. I think now that it's a very easy thing to convince someone that English whiskey is good, because it is really good.
Absolutely. I suppose it's the similar kind of thing. You know, if you go back a few years to discussions about Japanese whiskey or Indian whiskey, Taiwanese whiskey, Australian whiskey, now they're huge markets, and you look at the prices of Japanese whiskey and some of the Taiwanese whiskey, and of course Sullivan's Cove and things like that from Tasmania. The kind of prices that they command, the respect they command, the awards that they've received. We're now seeing that seems to be happening for English whiskey as well. So we're seeing, you know, whiskies that are going on sale. For example, Bimber recently, you know, anything they seem to release is snapped up. And just yesterday, White Peak had one of their first releases, I think their first kind of serious release. And looking on their social media, that seemed to sell out in, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours, maybe 500 bottles. So it does seem to be that English whiskey is certainly being taken very seriously now.
Yeah, I mean, the Bimber thing, I think there's a sense of almost weirdness to Bimber. You know, it's a group of Polish guys in West London on an industrial estate, and yet the product is beautiful looking, beautiful tasting, really complex. They've done so many things to make that end spirit perfect, you know, from the ingredients, from the process, from trying to keep tradition and try and create their own tradition in a lot of ways. There's 7-day fermentation in those beautiful large wooden fermentation tanks, you know, open topped, exposed to the elements. That, you know, it's that sense of magic. You know, whiskey is all about science plus magic, and I think a lot of Scotch, you know, especially the big distilleries, not the niche players, not the adventurers. You know, I've got a bottle of Wolfburn here. You know, you could say there's a lot of similarity between something like Wolfburn and English whiskey, where you've got smaller production volumes, and it's much more about the quality of the liquid and the experimentation. But yeah, Bimber just seemed to have really nailed the magic, you know, and people really buy into that and really want a piece of it, and they don't want to miss out. And I think that's the crucial thing, is they don't want to miss out on that next release, because it is limited and it is relatively small production volume.
Absolutely. And how do you think, like, the more established companies, like the English Whisky Company, you know, are they now sitting back as kind of like the godfathers of English whiskey and kind of watching their children grow almost across the country? Or how do you think those kind of guys, have you had any conversations with them, and how the more longer established whiskey distilleries in England sort of feel about the new kind of upstarts that are coming?
Well, we were chatting about that, you know, at the festival, and Andrew and Mike Fisher from English Whisky Company. You know, I think Andrew sort of was saying, if anything, it just gives them the confidence, knowing that, you know, A, they're not alone, and B, they're doing something right. You know, all of these other distilleries are not a threat at the moment. It's not a competitive market. It's a very supportive, collaborative market. But, you know, if anything, English whiskey seem to be doing more experimentation, you know, pushing the boundaries even more, because they're no longer alone. And, you know, it gives them that confidence, I think, to try new things and sort of, oh, look, so-and-so over there is doing that, you know, that's not a bad idea, and let's give that a try. So yeah. It's keeping them, I guess, on their toes a bit, but not in a threatening way. I think each English distillery is so unique still that there's no two things that are alike, so therefore you can't really compete.
Yeah, so I mean that's a good point. That came up on some of the panel discussions. So I think particularly in the future of English whiskey, so where English whiskey is now heading. Now we've got, you know, going from one distillery in 2006 to sort of 25 and growing. You know, all the time. It seems like I do a bit of digging online. I see someone else that's just starting up at the moment. So kind of what was 24 a couple of weeks ago is now 25 and 26. So it seems to be, of course, expanding rather rapidly. But one of the things that came up in the panel discussions was what makes English whiskey? Are we going to go down the route of having a kind of Scottish rules and regulations that define what it is to be called an English whiskey? Or are we going to be much freer and open to experimentation? That was one of the, and it seemed to divide the panel a little bit. There was half that were kind of, well, we need some fairly not too strict rules and regulations, but we need something that defines what an English whiskey should be to a minimum standard. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think, are you more on the line of experimentation, or sort of formulating some kind of rules in the kind of Scottish, Irish sort of vein?
I think the perfect scenario is having enough clarity and transparency for consumers to know what they're consuming when they drink something that says English whiskey. So I think some basic ground rules, like, you know, it has to, you know, the liquid has to be produced in England or potentially bottled in England. But I think when it comes to types of cask or types of still or volume, I think those things, if you restrict them too much, you end up with a lot of very similar end product. And I think, you know, you can see that in Scotland. Obviously, they've changed the rules and allowed some different cask types recently. But I think if someone in England wants to experiment with virgin English oak or beechwood or cherrywood, you know, these things might not necessarily succeed, or not in the traditional sense. They might not be popular with a broad audience, but there'll be a niche audience that loves that thing. You know, we were chatting earlier about Wharf Distillery and their beech smoked spirit, and it really divided opinion. It was Marmite. People loved it, or they just weren't up for it. But for a distillery of the scale of Wharf, they don't need to cater to everyone. You know, as long as there are people that really love that product, which there are, keep doing it, you know, and push the boundaries and smoke it with alder wood, smoke it with walnut wood. I don't know, you know, really go to town on it, because that innovation is interesting. I'd hate to see too many rules in the industry. And I know some of the players want to emulate Scotland and that's brilliant, but let's not just copy and, you know, and become a homogenous extension of what's already there. You know, behind me we've got, you know, this amazing rye whiskey from Oxford Artisan Distillery.
It's just beautiful.
You know, like that stuff's really interesting, and it's not something that you would be producing in Scotland right now. So yeah.
Do you think there's innovation? Do you think there's any danger? Because I think that was one of the points, that there could be the danger of, if things are quite free in England in terms of rules and regulations, if we kind of don't have a set kind of 3-year minimum or those kind of things in terms of the aging, could that then open the doors for a few cowboys to come in and, you know, muddy the waters a little bit, and then the quality goes down? So worldwide, English whiskey gets a bit of a reputation, but it's all full of experimentation. Some of it's really good, and, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's awful out there. Do you think that's a danger?
I think the 3-year rule is a good one for, you know, you have to be really committed to wanting to make whiskey to do it and wait 3 years. So I think something like that is a good, it's one of those core basic tenets of whiskey making, I think, that really do cut the wheat from the chaff, as it were. But someone like, again, Wharf, they're not going to be exporting to Japan. They can barely export outside Northamptonshire. So, you know, I don't think you're going to have, you know, someone in New York going, I don't much care for this smoked English whiskey. I very much hope one day it is in bars in New York for them and for the team, because, as I said, some people really love it. But I don't think, you know, at the moment, Cotswolds and English are probably the only two you can get, you know, internationally. Let's just get the product out there first and worry about the consequences later. I'm coming from a consumer angle. I just want to try everything. And I think, you know, let's share the love and share the good stuff. And, you know, as with all things, you know, the cream rises to the top. So.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with that. I'm all for the experimentation, as long as the quality stays. I mean, we're in a good place with English whiskey right now, and I guess some people don't want that to change. They want to keep it continuing, and some great craft spirits out there. So no, I do agree. I'm all for experimentation. So, how about the English Whisky Society? What's next on the horizon for you guys? Are there any more events coming? Any sort of news that we can know about?
Well, as I said earlier, all of our efforts have gone into the festival over the last few months. So we kind of put the broader society on hold. There will be some announcements coming quite shortly, one of which is actually quite significant in that we probably won't end up keeping the same name, because basically when I started this, it was a hobby. It was just the name that sort of suited what we were setting out to do. But as it's become apparent that actually this can become something bigger, and we try to formalize it, I've learned the hard lesson of many people setting up a business that you can't do everything you want, and there are some quite strict restrictions on the use of certain words. So English being one of them. You know, if you have English at the start of something, or you call it the English or of English, there are some quite strict restrictions around using that term. So we're looking at what we can call it, but the core premise is going to remain the same, which is we want to share and celebrate and promote English whiskey. We want to have a membership that allows people to access unique experiences, access unique products. You know, we want to have a variety of casks that people can sort of, you know, buy shares in, you know, and own a little piece of each distillery. So all of that is still on the cards and in the process, and, you know, the planning is starting in earnest. But what we call ourselves, you know, how we present ourselves might change slightly, but it will still be the same thing, basically.
Great, sounds good. And one final question for you. So it might be a cheeky question. I don't want you to show too much favoritism on there, but if I was to ask you now, I said, okay, we're going off to a desert island, you've got to take your favorite English whiskey with you. What would you choose?
Everyone asks that question. I mean, I've got to say right now, I'm just very excited about Oxford Artisan. I just love the fact that they've got these bonkers stills. They've got a bonkers distiller, and he won't mind me saying that. Corey is just so interesting and, you know, different. And I think going back to that point around innovation, I just love it when someone tries something different. And their whole setup, their team are lovely. They're you know, I'd love to visit their distillery. I haven't had a chance yet, but I'm drawn to that sort of sense of different and that sense of playfulness. And right now, I love the bottle. I love the liquid. So at the moment, I'm really enjoying that. I wouldn't say I've got a favorite, but if I had to grab one and run, that's the bottle I'm taking tonight.
That's what you take today. Well, and he's got a nice moustache as well, so that's always. Well, I do agree with you. You can see, actually, I did have, here it is, this one. I don't know if you tried any of the Beecher Rye, their first release, which was excellent. So much so, this is my second bottle, and both of them have gone now. So, and I don't think there's any more of this available. So,
But then, having said that, I'm looking here and going, well, actually, if I had to run out quickly, I'm probably trying to grab as many of those bottles as I can.
You'll make a blend. Maybe that could be
yeah, that could be the future. But yeah, you know, that's the great thing, isn't it? There's a different dram for a different occasion, a different moment. You know, the Dartmoor, you can just see by the color, you know, that's the ex-bourbon cask, and it's so light and fresh and fruity. You know, all the way through to, you know, the festival exclusive from English Whisky Company, which is definitely not light and fresh and fruity.
Yeah, I mean, this is certainly going to go into my kind of. I probably at the end of the year I'm going to sort of compile a list of my, because I don't subscribe to like the best English whiskey or the best world whiskey. I'm not into that, but because there's only what my favorite is or what personally. But in my kind of whiskies of this year, this will definitely feature. So I don't know where it's going to go, but it's a cracking release. And well done for securing that as well. It's an excellent whiskey.
Well, thank you to English Whisky Company for bottling a single cask for the event. So
I'm very tempted to sort of crack this one open, but I need to save this for a special occasion. This one, so it's a beautiful whiskey.
It is indeed.
So, well, I just want to thank you very much for joining me this evening. Thank you so much. I can hear my stomach rumbling, so I better go off and grab a late dinner. And so, how can people get in touch with the English Whisky Society? What are your sort of details and your Twitter and Instagram and website, that kind of thing?
Yep. So we are at English Whisky Society on Instagram and Facebook. We're I think at Eng Whisky Soc, so ENG Whiskey SOC on Twitter. But if you put English Whisky in, I think we're one of the top hits. And we've actually got some links. So we've got our link tree. So it's linktree/English Whisky Society, and that's where you can sign up to our mailing list to hear all the latest news about what is happening in the coming weeks and months with the organisation. There's still a few links to some packs. There's still a few of these lovely packs that you can buy.
Nice.
So if you fancy trying some English whiskey, they're now heavily discounted, the few that are remaining, and that gets you access to the festival as well. So if you want to relive the event, or if you missed it, then you can still take part.
Perfect. There's a couple in there that I still haven't tried yet, so I'll be in touch about those, that's for sure.
Excellent.
So, Richard, thank you so much for joining us evening. Really appreciate that, and good luck with everything with the English Whisky Society. And I'm going to be sure to keep in touch, and I know I'm involved with yourselves a bit as much as I can be, and so I'm looking forward to working alongside you guys, and seem we have a very exciting future ahead for English Whisky.